Tech Support, where patience is tested and comedy is born. Story 1. Nurse got locked out of her computer. So I work for a smaller, local healthcare company. I am a one-man IT department for the company, so I assist everyone in the office with their tech problems. A lot of the people that work here are fairly tech-savvy, but a few of our nurses just aren't. So earlier this week, one of my nurses calls the IT department, B, and complains that her little one must have gained access to her laptop. Because the login screen wasn't asking for her PIN, she said it was asking for a password. So like usual, I think it just needs my IT password to unlock, because of too many PIN attempts. I give her the password, she says it doesn't work. So I repeat it again, slower this time, she says it doesn't work. So I give her temporary access to the admin account to finish her work with her patient, then have her bring it in. When I take a look at it, it wasn't the password it was asking for, it was the challenge phrase A1B2C3, and it literally said it right below where it said it needed the phrase to be entered. That just gave me a little chuckle. So I entered it in, unlocked the PIN, then gave it back. Probably one of the easier troubleshoots I've done lately. Story 2. The Bible forbids Wi-Fi. This is a short story, but I found it weird enough to post. For context, my boyfriend broke his phone and ordered another one through Asurion. They accidentally gave him a locked phone, so he was unable to access his cell service and will need to swap it out for an unlocked phone. He told me that he was going to go to the garage to get some work done and won't be able to communicate with me. He's a mechanic at a small Mennonite/ex-Mennonite business. When he got there, he was surprised that he was able to text me because their third-party service added his phone to the network. This is where I became confused. Why did he need a third party to add his phone to the network? Do they not have employee or guest Wi-Fi? This is how I came to find out that his boss's church forbids the use of Wi-Fi networks. I am not only bothered by the fact that a church is dictating how another business operates, but also by the fact that they have that rule in the first place. Where in the Bible did they forbid the use of Wi-Fi? I'm being sarcastic here. I know that Wi-Fi is not in the Bible. Story 3. Tickets please. Me. Thank you for calling the IT help desk. This is my name. Can I confirm your name and ID? Customer. Yeah. I just spoke with another tech, but my call disconnected. I have another issue. Can you sign into my computer and take a look at this? Me. I understand. Can I first have your name and ID number? Customer. Yes, it's spells name, and ID is ID. Me. Okay. Customer's name. You mentioned you had another ticket. How might I assist you, and can you give me the ticket number? Customer. I don't have a ticket number, but the issues is the last tech pinned the desktop to my list of folders. But it's duplicating. Can you sign in and fix it? Me. Okay. Can you give me the computer number? Customer. The last tech didn't ask for it. Me. I want to make sure it's the right one. Can you give me the number so I can be sure? Customer. It's number. I sign into her computer, see maybe 5 icons on her desktop. Me. I don't see any duplicates on the desktop. Can you show me where they are? Customer. They are not here. They are on the desktop. Customer opens the desktop quick access folder and the same files are here. Me. Ma'am. This is a shortcut to the desktop folder. It's not a new folder. The same icons will appear here. Customer. Well, it looks cluttered. Can you make sure only items that are not on my desktop appear on the folder? Me. Let me see what I can do. I spent some time looking at this and sent it over to Tier 2 as she kept making customization questions. Customer. In the meantime, can you tell me how to check the size of OneDrive? I show her how to check the size of OneDrive. Customer. No. I want to see how data we have left. Me. Ma'am, there is not really a size. Limit it's 25 terabytes company-wide. You personally have unlimited space, as long as the company doesn't pass that cap. Customer. But I want to see how much is left. Me. It's a company account, ma'am. If you like, I can send to the OneDrive team. Let me send the ticket over. Customer. Okay. I have one more question on OneDrive. What do the icons mean? I created a third ticket and answer her questions. Customer. Wait. I just got an email. Why are you creating more tickets? Me. Company policy. Every issue I reported, I need to create a new ticket for customer. Why do you keep doing this? I'm just asking question. Me. I need to keep a record for everything that was reported here. Customer. Well, I have more questions, but I'm not sure if I'm going to ask you, as you will just create more tickets. Me. I understand the concern, ma'am, but I do need to create a ticket if the problem is different enough. As I said, they want to keep records. Now, is there anything else I can do for you today? Customer. I have one more question, but no more tickets. Me. I can't make that promise. If it's similar enough, I might be able to put it in the notes of an existing ticket, but it has to be close enough. Customer: I'm tired of the computer adding programs to my recent items. How do I only make it so the computer adds what I want? Here I am, thankful enough that it's close enough to her first issue. Story 4. Why don't people listen? I've been in systems roughly 10 years at this point. If I miss one syllable, someone says, I'm an evil bastard. There is no winning. Someone sends a 13-thread email chain and wants me to piece together what they need. Now I can try and piece it together and miss something, and they get mad. Or I can flat out say, could you please summarize what it is you need from me? I feel if I try to piece it together, I will miss key information. Now both approaches are going to get someone mad at me, but I'd rather they be mad at me and I have all of the information. Meanwhile, no one listens to me. I was in a meeting Friday and said, I have addressed both the functionality and config item. And this woman spoke after me, see, West is only talking about the config item, we need to address both. This was a recent interaction with an executive. A C-level executive asked me to send credentials for a new hire. I sent them in an encrypted internal email. She replies verbatim, I did not receive the email. This was odd. She was receiving all my other messages and this is an internal email. Still, I gave her the benefit of the doubt and sent it again. Her reply, I did not receive the email. I ran a trace. It showed as delivered. I followed up. It shows delivered. Please check your junk or deleted items. Her response, I did not receive the email. So I checked her mailbox from my end. Sure enough, the emails were sitting in her deleted items. I let her know. Again, she said, I did not receive the email. At this point, I called her. She shared her screen, opened her deleted items, and there they were. I asked her to open one. She said, but they're blank. I explained, encrypted emails don't display in the reading pane. You have to double-click to view them. I also politely pointed out the text in the reading pane that explained this. Here's the wild part. She was getting the emails, was deleting them, and never once said, they're coming in blank. She insisted she wasn't receiving them at all, even after being told they were in her deleted folder. Not once did she mention, oh, I deleted them. Story 5. Can you help me with my computer? I'm currently living in a group home. Most people are not computer literate. They spell computer with a K. I frequently sit in the common area and I'm on a computer, so people with cell phone or computer issues have been coming to me, and I've always helped out. There is this one gentleman for over a month, on and off, kept asking me to help him with his computer. I kept to bring me the computer. So one day he actually does so, puts the computer down and tells me the battery is dead. I said, okay, where is the power cord? He doesn't have one. I tell him I can't do anything without power to the computer. Sadly enough, he really did believe I could help him with his computer even though it had no power. As I have said when verbally telling people about this, my computer skills are God, but not that good. LOL. Story 6. I don't know where your file is. I wanted to post this short story from this morning because it has completely set the tone for the rest of my day and speaks to my biggest gripe with working help desk, the expectation that I am a miracle worker. There's a lady in my office who, despite being very kind and I otherwise have no problems interacting with, drives me crazy with her tech problems, of which there are many. She tends to fiddle with things, break them, and then come to me wondering why they are broken. This morning, she calls my phone asking for help, telling me that she has a Word file that she regularly updates, but that her most recent changes from a couple of days ago are not there, and the file says it was last saved a few days before that. She wanted to know if there was anything I could do to restore the updated file, and I was trying to run through my options in my head. I figured the file server backup might work, but wasn't sure since this was more likely just a case of her not saving her work. Then she mentions that she's pretty sure she saved the updated version as a separate file somewhere, but isn't sure where that was. Now my brain's going off in a different direction, and all I could say was, I'll need to do some digging. I can't think of anything I can do for you off the top of my head. I also told her that if she just saved it somewhere, there's really nothing I can do to find it other than searching for it in File Explorer, which I recommended she do in the meantime. Apparently, she didn't like that because she got frustrated and said she would just redo all that work from the past few days if I'm not going to help her, and hangs up. I just don't know what I possibly could have done for her in that moment there. If the file wasn't saved, I can't pull it out of the ether, and if it was saved somewhere unknown, then running a general search was going to be her best bet anyways. This just seems to be a running theme. If I can't offer a solution then and there, I must have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm impeding on their ability to do their job. I'm hoping to be out of help desk within the next couple of years. Edit, forgot to mention, but she had already checked recent documents and it wasn't there. It's more likely than anything that she just didn't save the file. Story 7. Kudos for choosing the extended cuts, I guess. I've told this story a few times, but never wrote it down anywhere. Was working on the help desk for a company that had a lot of different divisions that all reported to the same corporate. One day I get a call from one of the corporate dollar users stating his laptop appears to be out of storage. I'd been working on my own flash drive full of useful IT tools and remembered WinDearStat, a data visualization tool for your hard drive. I'm thinking, okay, let's fire up this tool and see what's up. Immediately I see 3 giant blocks, each one a single file. I check the top of the app and see they are all in a single folder. Head down and click on one of them to get the file name and, well, that would explain it. Sir, do you still need the Lord of the Rings Extended Cut Blu-ray trilogy on here? We can delete that and make some room. For reference, the trilogy is somewhere north of 100 GB for 3 video files. I got a real quiet nope out of him, deleted the files, and he was on his way. Turns out he does a lot of traveling. No idea why he loaded these onto his work laptop and not his own device, but I'd probably want some entertainment too. Story 8. Don't want to pay £50 for casters? Okay, how about £300 plus lost production time? This is back in the day, but when we quoted for structured cabling installations, we itemized the rack contents. So it would be 42U rack, plus 4 shelves, plus patch panels, plus cable management bars, and so on. The last item would be heavy-duty casters. This would be for a rack in an office or production environment, not in a climate-controlled server room, and you might need to move it a bit to get access behind to feed in more cable or services, or just for whatever. This client didn't like the idea of £50 for casters, so he approved the whole £30,000 project, quote, but he struck off the casters. I strongly advised against this, but the project went ahead with fixed feet on the rack. A couple of months later, guess what? They needed to move the rack a few feet to get some electrical work done. That's fine, we can do that. We'll just have to shut the network down, remove all the equipment from the rack, lay it on its side, change the fixed feet for casters, upright it, reinstall the kit, and off you go. He saw the irony. I stopped itemizing rack components. Story 9. The security camera system won't log me in automatically anymore. Yesterday, something happened at work that reminded me of stories on this sub. So I work in shifts as a technician in a data center. Outside of office hours, there is only me and some security guards on site. While IT-related problems are usually not for us techs to deal with, as we have an IT department for this stuff, we technicians are often the first line of fire when an IT problem surfaces because we are always on site. Yesterday was a national holiday, so no one on site except me and the security guards. One of the guards calls me and says his security camera system won't log him in properly anymore and shuts down immediately when login is done. I explained that I have no clue about the IT side of things, but I can at least take a look to see what's up. It turned out that somehow he had minimized the camera system on his desktop to such an extent that once it had started up, it disappeared. All it took to fix his issue was to maximize the program from the taskbar. Hope you enjoyed. Thought this would be a nice story about user experience versus reality. Story 10 to 5 minutes of helping a colleague equals cookies and a thank you note. A colleague of mine that works in finance downloaded a comma-separated values CSV file from a bank and opened it in Excel as she always does. Said file was basically all the transactions for a particular month. What happened is it only showed about a third of the data that was expected in the Excel file. It would get to a particular cell, and that would be the end of the data in Excel, although she could see on the web page that there was lots more transactions. All other months were fine, just this one file for that one particular month. So she calls our internal help desk. They take a look and say it must be something wrong with the bank or the file, and suggested they contact the bank. She contacts her bank via phone. They say they don't know what to do, but to contact the business banking team via email. She contacts the business banking team via email. They say they can't assist with this, but to contact the bank's internal IT help desk. She contacts the bank's internal IT help desk, who say they only assist bank employees and not the public, and suggested she calls our own internal help desk. Eventually, she messages me on Teams and says although she knows this isn't what I look at, she has spent 2 hours contacting various teams and no one will assist. I head over to her desk to take a look and notice where the data discrepancy between the website and CSV file is. There is a single quotation mark, IEA, as one of the fields has a single quotation mark in it. With a CSV file, if you want to have something literal in there, like a comma, you need to put a quotation mark at the beginning and end of something, such as, opening the file in Notepad, I could see that all the data after the quotation mark was not showing in Excel, and in the entire CSV file there was only the single quotation mark. All the data was in the CSV file, so remove the quotation mark and save the file. I then opened it in Excel and all the data was showing as expected. So it seems with Excel, if you have a CSV with a single quotation mark and no second quotation mark to delimit it, it will just ignore all data after the quotation mark. I explained this to my colleagues, who is just ecstatic that this is working now and understands what is going on. The next morning when I come into the office, on my desk is a big basket of freshly baked cookies and a handwritten note. The note explains how, without me working out what was wrong, she would have had to spend several hours copying and pasting, field by field, for hundreds of lines from the website to Excel. Story 11. Blank monitor equals IT blocked the switch. Over the past few months, we've been slowly building up one of our field offices as they've been hiring people, which means sending out the occasional new workstation/monitors, etc., for new users to log into. They get the PC, plug it into the switch on site, and go. Pretty standard, and no issues up until this one. One day a ticket comes into the help desk from the office admin out there that says, "Can we please unblock port X on the switch so the new guy can access the internet?" Immediately I raise an eyebrow because we don't block the internet on any of our switch ports at any other sites, and it wouldn't make any sense for just this one port not to work when we've been sending them new machines for weeks now. So I grab the ticket and do a bit of investigative work by opening up our remote access software, where I can see the PC clearly showing as online, as well as logging into the firewall and seeing the PC connected to the switch port in question. I responded back to the ticket saying things looked okay from my end, but figured I might be looking at the wrong PC, and asked her to confirm the name of the machine. We stick a label with the PC name on every PC we send out. Crickets. 5 minutes later, the foreman for the site calls my coworker annoyed, saying, "You guys need to fix this. This guy is just sitting here unable to do any work." And moments after that, the user himself sends in a ticket with the same description as above. "Please unblock port X on the switch." So now I'm getting annoyed, and after finally tracking down their phone number that everyone neglected to give us, I give the guy a call. I confirmed the PC name with him, remoted into the machine, and then saw the Windows login screen. I thought, oh, he must just not be entering his password correctly. I guess I could see why they thought it was the internet. So I asked him to try entering his password again to see what would happen. He says he doesn't see anything, just a blank monitor that has the word English on it. And then it clicked. We have been sending them newer Dell monitors that, when you first plug them in, you just have to use one of the physical buttons on the monitor to, select your language, as instructed on the screen itself. He reads the message, presses the button it tells him to, and WHOA. Everything works. Go figure. Now, like a lot of you, I'm sure that when someone describes an issue like, the internet doesn't work, you run down the mental checklist of other stuff that might actually be going on that they lack the tech literacy to describe, but this was a whole other level that I wasn't prepared for. How you get from a blank monitor to the firewall port is blocked is such a baffling big stretch that I'm still not quite sure how they arrived there. Story 12. Just another day in IT land. I work in IT support, which basically means I'm a mix of tech therapist, cable wrangler, and general panic button for anything with a power button. Today was a special flavor of chaos. Morning kicks off with a manager emailing me to say the conference room mic is making echo and demanding a new one with noise cancellation. No questions, no troubleshooting, just a royal decree. Sure, let me just requisition a NASA-grade mic from the void. Next up, someone asked me to disconnect her monitor and printer because she's getting a new desk. Unplug everything, move it out. 2 minutes later, she calls me back. Turns out the desk install isn't even happening today, so now I'm a reverse moving service. HR/admin manager misses a call from a top exec and blames it on her desk phone not ringing. Turns out that she spent most of the time in the lounge area. She's now convinced it's a hardware fault because of course she is. And the best part? CTO calls in, saying emails aren't going out and it's probably something serious. I remote in, check Outlook, and he's got one giant email stuck in his outbox. I delete it, and suddenly everything else sends just fine. Mystery of the century solved. I'm not saying I'm a miracle worker, but at this point I feel like an unpaid magician. Story 13. When headphones mysteriously change the volume by themselves. Another story from a few years ago. A coworker had some funny behavior of her headphones. They would randomly change the volume between normal, low, or completely quiet. It happened every time she put them on off her head. I was looking at them, trying them on, thinking maybe it was something with the mic boom changing angle and a hidden switch inside or something like that. At one moment I was sitting right beside her, watching when she was putting them on, and I saw it. You know how you usually put those over-the-ear headphones on? You grab them with both hands, one hand on each side, thumb on the back side, and other fingers on the front. Well, right where you put the left thumb was the volume control. Who made that design decision? I was remembered recently because it happened again to her that she could not hear anything. We then both remembered that story. Edit. It was the left side, not right. Story 14. The Italian grandmother who wouldn't let me go hungry. Wholesome. This came to mind a few months ago. Years ago, in the late 90s through the early 2010s, I had a retired insurance executive I provided regular PC tech support for. His name was Rich, and he retired around 1996 after a long career, so he didn't exactly grow up with computers, but he wanted to be able to Skype with his grandkids and family across the world, as they were empty nesters at this point. He had regular questions and issues, most of which were simple, typical stuff. How do I find this Word document I made? How do I save a favorite website icon? How do I print an envelope? And so on. Basic, easy stuff. Never complicated, and he was always very grateful for the help. Here's where it gets fun. His wife Rita was a first-generation American from an Italian family. If you're familiar with Italians, this means you must eat when you're in their home. Since Rich had regular tech questions, it was pretty common for me to be there about once a month or so. And Rita insisted on feeding me each time, and feed me she did. Homemade pastas, sauces, lemonade, roasted pork chops, cookies, bars, desserts, you name it. Each dish described as it was placed before me. I never left hungry. And Rich also insisted on giving me a few bucks, around $20 US each time. I always left with cash and a full belly. Rich passed away about 10 years ago, but Rita is still around. Her family moved her into an assisted care facility, and her daughter now lives in the area too, and we happened to run into them last December. Edit, 2024. I hadn't seen Rita in a few years, and she warmly remembered me with as big of a hug a 92-year-old, tiny, frail Italian woman could give. It almost made me cry. Her daughter had the wherewithal to take a picture of us too, and she sent it to me. Just goes to show that some users really are grateful and kind. Story 15. You're my knight in shining armor. A lot of posts on this sub are about annoying users, and I have plenty of tales about them. But this is a tale about one of the reasons I love my job. I was working at a law firm a while back. It was a very quiet office, but one afternoon I heard someone scream, "No!" Then I heard someone running towards my office. The user burst in, saying she had been working on a document all day, facing a tight deadline, but when she closed out of the doc, she accidentally clicked no instead of yes when prompted to save her changes. While I was taking a look, she kept saying things like, "I'm so stupid," but I was quickly able to recover her doc. She was so amazed and relieved. The next day, I found a handwritten thank you card and a $25 gift card on my desk. In the card, and ever since, she referred to me as her knight in shining armor. So even though it was a simple fix for me, it meant everything to her. I love those kinds of issues. Story 16, the one with yellow teams. Although I am not the official tech support for your office, I know a thing or two about implementing Microsoft Teams rooms. The first line support did not know what to do with this ticket, so they contacted me. Fortunately, the woman that had created the ticket was available for testing. Ticket stated that when she used a Teams room to give online training, her shared screen was perceived very yellow by the trainees, while other people in the meeting had normal colored screens. She even had meeting recording to prove just that. I looked at her laptop, found the screen a bit darker, then normal but nothing obvious. Set up a Teams meeting, let her share her screen using the share screen function, and a perfect picture appeared. But she was insisting that she wanted to share her screen like anyone else, meaning she wanted to use the HDMI cable that is connected to the Teams room setup for this purpose. When she used the HDMI, the 65-inch presentation screen also looked a bit off to me, but not too disturbing, but the screen presented to me was a very, very yellow screen. I had some situation before that users from home have HDR displays and set the display to HDR mode in Windows set to ON, but that gives a flat image without much colors. Checked all her graphic settings, all set to default, not the cause of the problem. Then she mentioned that the bright colors of her laptop bother her when she worked late on her laptop. Instead of dimming the screen, she used Windows Nightlight mode to dim the bright blue colors. That day, I learned that Nightlight mode can turn your team's presentation yellow. She promised to turn Nightlight mode off for her next presentation. Story 17. My computer is possessed. I work for a school district. I get a panicked call from our middle school vice principal. She says that her laptop is trying to take screenshots and type random things and is going crazy, but it's only happening in her office. If she leaves her office, it's fine. Not possessed, not taking screenshots, everything is great. She comes back to her office and it's possessed again. I remote in and I see the snippet tools popping up, the screen is jumpy, she opens up a Google Doc and it is typing random characters, adding new lines every second. I can't figure it out. It seems like she has a puppy office and put peanut butter on her keyboard. I go over there to get my eyes on it, and I see that she has a wireless keyboard and mouse USB in the laptop, but no keyboard or mouse on the desk. I ask where the keyboard and mouse are, and she said still in her bag. She pulls them out of the bag, and the keyboard was still on. Being in the bag leaned up against her desk, random keys were being pressed. When she left her office, it would disconnect, come back in, and it would reconnect and go crazy. Story 18. Man, sometimes people makes me extremely angry and make me lose hope in humanity. We have the guy, that one guy that everyone in support knows and tries to avoid. Mr. Baldy came in, his first day. I have been in tech for the past 25 years. I probably know more than you. Every single ticket he opens is dumb stuff, like literally basic kindergarten stuff. Last ticket? 6 lines of gibberish. He is American and has a master's and a PhD, so he should at least know how to spell. What he wanted? Simple stuff. He wants to open Gmail as an app, which comes by default as we manage the browsers. I give him the instructions, tell him to open the menu in the address bar, send him a frickin' screenshot showing him exactly where it is, and tell him to enable it there. He replies, SIC, you instructins, make no sense there, ISNT, menu there, PLS fix. He literally took a screenshot and marked the exact spot where the menu is, and when I tell him that, he was like, you never mentioned that I need to click for the menu to appear. Again, I am typing this exactly as he did. Dude has been in IT for 25 years and knows more than me, but doesn't know you need to click on the menu button for the menu to pop up. Underscore. And just so you have an idea of how much of a pain he is, he always complains OFC. This ticket went through 5 different people, all saying, no, I will not touch that. Story 19. Manager's files went POOOFF. A few weeks ago, the manager of another department needed to have their machine re-imaged because of some bugs. Simple job. They had had their laptop for months and never signed on once to OneDrive. We send out regular reminders via email for users to please log in to OneDrive ASAP to back up your files. Unsurprisingly, those emails go unheeded as I find out every time I have to replace someone's laptop or computer and ask if they have backed up to OneDrive and they give me a blank stare. The day before this manager was supposed to ship out their laptop, I was asked to check in on them and make sure they had backed up their files. They of course hadn't, so I showed them where to log on, what to sync, etc. I let them know OneDrive could take a while, so just continue working and let it run in the background. I walked away, whistling a jaunty tune, thinking all was right in the world. Manager shipped out their laptop, I gave them a loaner. The re-imaged laptop returned some days later. The day the laptop returned, the manager called me and asked if I could help them find some documents. I asked them if they had signed on to OneDrive, and they hadn't, so I let them know to do so and to call me back if anything was missing. I got a sinking feeling in my gut, but was praying it was just gas. The manager called me back and explained that OneDrive was signed in and syncing, but all that was available was folders and subfolders with nothing in them. I checked their OneDrive web portal in case the desktop app had not finished syncing, and all I saw was empty folders. I checked with my boss, our O365 admin, and one other guy who had luck in the past resolving this, and they all basically said this manager was SOL. We're pretty sure the laptop was disconnected too early and sent out without the manager confirming everything was backed up. I still feel really bad about it, but my boss reminded me the manager should have started backing up as soon as he got the laptop months ago and let it auto-sync. We had a long, hard conversation with them, and they were understandably pissed. My manager and I both apologized, but there was nothing we could do. Story 20. I helped a user automate her duties, and in the end, I automated her out of her job. I helped someone last year automate part of their duties. She spent about 6 weeks a quarter building a report for our leadership, so about half her time was devoted to this. The solution I built, like everything I make, used existing tools and data sources. And like everything I make, it was a little crude. A quick and dirty solution that required a couple pushes and occasional maintenance when she wanted changes or would get herself into trouble. But it worked. Unless something went wrong, it made a 6-week process into I think about an hour total. But every quarter, at least one thing would go wrong. In all cases, I found the root cause was the user attempting to do something my solution wasn't designed to do. And then she, eager to help as she is, would try to fix things herself, which would always make it worse. In all cases, I simply reverted to an earlier version and she's back in business. My user approached a more experienced team to get something that would do an even better job. The team declined as what she already had performed adequately, and they needed to focus on revenue-generating projects. So she continued using what I made, and every quarter we did this dance where she runs into trouble and I bail her out. Once I got used to this, I did no troubleshooting and just reverted, so it took me very little time. She would typically spend the time my solution saved her by prettying up the text in the presentation, helping out coworkers, doing other little manual tasks here and there for her team, and teaching herself how to use the tools I'd employed to create this solution for her. Then last month, my user mentioned that they were still spending some weeks per quarter doing more aggregating and parsing. I told her that everything she was doing as part of that effort I could automate too. And I'd gotten experienced at using 2 powerful tools my company had that could handle everything she needed. One tool could ingest, aggregate, and parse the data. The other one could create nice tables and charts and such. Combined, I could add more functionality and make her interventions impossible. So a stable, better product. She'd just have to update bits of the text here and there. I finished making it, and she was thrilled. Now the quarterly report process was down to maybe a few days a week at most, and it consisted almost entirely of updating the text in the deck and verifying it's what people wanted. So she had gone from spending at least 70% of her time creating this thing, down to maybe 5 to 10%. She was looking forward to moving on from the report to other things, which she did. She moved on right out of the company. I liked her. She was always trying to learn. Even when she was creating havoc, it normally made sense, and her havoc was getting more sophisticated as time went on. And I never complained about her havoc as it came from such a good place. I wondered if this would happen. I had hoped not, but that's how it goes. So now it's possible that I will take over creating this report and the accompanying deck, which has frustrated my boss. She wants us to be the team who builds solutions, not the team who accumulates random duties. She suspects the other team's manager waited until they had someone ready to take over building the report, which that manager now has indicated is me. I have hopes to dodge this assignment, as I am not a SME on the data itself, only the machine that massages it. But I suppose I'll find out when the next fiscal quarter starts. My backup plan is to be a nuisance to my user's old team, with endless questions, some of which will be justified. With luck, they will assign a resource to handle report creation for a few days, and I continue on as a technical resource. Story 21. Your update messed up my computer. Received a call. User states ever since IT implemented the new VPN, every time her computer locks, she needs to restart the computer to log in. She gave me the error message, "Smart card cannot be used," which sounded familiar, but I looked through footprints just to make sure. Then it became, "This message only appears when you leave the pin field blank." I said, "Ma'am, do you have numlock on?" She said no. I said hit numlock and try it again, and voila, she was able to log in again. Now, I've had plenty calls about numlock before, but this one had me confused because she claimed it only happened when the computer locked, but not when she initially logged in. Then she comes out and says, "I never thought about numlock. When I first log in, I used the numbers about the letters on the top row." Cue facepalm. Story 22. My webcam isn't working for Zoom. What do? I work at a repair shop. I am a tech, but also a sales guy. Today, we had a lady come in with a nice Lenovo laptop. She was freaking out because her webcam wasn't working, especially for Zoom. The first thing I noticed when she opened it is that it had a privacy slider, where it physically blocks the camera from seeing anything. All I did was open up Windows Camera app, move the slider, and the webcam was working again. Ironically, when I opened the app, it asked, "Is something blocking your camera?" And then that disappeared when I moved the slider. This lady was baffled that it had a privacy slider. She said she had owned this laptop for 3 or 4 years and never noticed that. How do you own a computer for 3 or 4 years and not see something staring at your face? Whatever. She went on her way, and so did I. Thankfully, a happy ending to one problem of the day. Story 23. Don't complain your issue isn't fixed if you don't ask for it to be fixed. This story takes place a few years ago. I want to say 2018, 2019-ish. Anyway, we had this user at work. She was the oldest employee there, and we used to joke that they built the walls around her because she literally saw the construction begin. She was also absolutely abysmal at everything, even remotely technical. Like one day she told me her computer was laggy when it was just her mouse that had stopped working. A new mouse and the computer wasn't lagging anymore. So one day she calls me, saying that the fax machine didn't work, and she needed it because a lot of important people used fax to send us information. Again, this was in 2018, 2019, so sure lady, whatever you say. I grab one of my colleagues who is more competent in phones and faxes than I am, and we go see what's all about. We discover that the fax is unplugged, as in the power cord is not connected to the outlet, so it stands to reason the fax wouldn't work without energy. Plug it back in, and when the fax comes back to life, it starts making a lot of unusual noise. Think along the lines of annoying beeps and such. Hearing that, the user exclaimed, "Oh yes, I remember. I unplugged the fax last month before I went on holidays because it was making so much noise." So you're telling us the fax hasn't been working properly for more than a month, and you didn't notify tech support because why exactly? We ended up solving the issue, and the user got a little warning to call tech support if she had trouble with her equipment and not unplug them by her own volition. Sometimes I have to actively remind myself that I actually like my job. Story 24. Trying to get my dad reconnected to Spotify goes wrong. Just to preface, I'm not actually a tech support professional, but I'm the most tech-savvy person in the family. I was trying to get my dad connected to our family Spotify plan. I sent him a link to connect to Premium. He was still having issues because he didn't know his username/password. I told him how to find his username and that his password should be saved on his phone in the password app. He tells me he was able to change the password to something he remembered, but he still couldn't get in, so I told him I'd have a look when I come over to see him in a few days. He gives me his phone and I'm looking around and find out why he can't get in. Problem 1, he has an old email account he can't access anymore linked to Spotify. Problem 2, while trying to log in, he chose the login with Google option and ended up creating a new account with his current email, so now he can't change emails to an account he has access to. I got him to create a new throwaway email to use instead, but it requires a password to change registered email, which leads to problem 3. Problem 3. When he changed his password, what he really did was change the saved password on his phone to a new one and doesn't know what it was before he changed it. To log into Spotify online to join Premium, he either needs a password he doesn't remember and is no longer saved on his phone and can't change, or he needs to enter a code that was sent to an email he no longer has access to, which is also the case if he tries to change his password. Story 25. Bricking 10 servers. This is from the old days when I was working for the on-site service of a big PC server company. I was responsible for the on-site service in my region. It was a dark Friday night in September, and I had just lit a nice fire in my fireplace, had a nice hot chocolate, and a book when my phone rang. I needed to head to a client now, as all of his 10 servers were out and the hotline could not find out why and what to do. As I arrived, I could confirm that indeed all 10 servers were dead. Like, no light, no nothing. The IT guy was a middle-aged electrical engineer who was very upset and quite angry, and so it took me a little time to find out what happened. Very long story short, the guy thought it was a good idea to do some firmware updates via the IDRAC while Newen was there that could complain about the servers rebooting. That is indeed a valid reason to do this on all servers at once on a Friday evening, so he clicked on Update All and went to do other stuff. Then he did a little more. And then he did something else. He told me all he did in excruciating detail. Nothing he did had anything to do with the servers, but he could not be stopped. As the servers were still updating, he then went out to have a smoke. As he returned, the servers were offline and he was not able to connect to the devices. So he obviously did what any responsible user would do. He tried to power cycle the devices, each and every one of the poor things, the hard way by cutting the power to the enclosure. This was the exact moment he learned that power supplies have a BIOS too. He also learned that this BIOS can be updated. He learned that when this happens, everything else shuts down. He learned that an update on a PSU is a very slow thing. And he learned that cutting the power to a PSU that is updating instantly kills the poor little thing. Well, I ordered 20 new PSUs. Installing them revived all servers. 26. How a not printing printer turned into a mess to reset a password. I'm not formal IT. I work mostly with seniors doing small stuff like installing a printer or teaching them how to use a tablet. I was in the building for the memorial of a customer that I had grown quite close to. Another story I'll link at the end. I was helping the daughter of the customer/friend with setting up for the memorial. The lady she was staying with said she was having trouble with her printer and wanted to hire me. I agreed and made arrangements to do the work. She says that it simply won't print. In my mind, I'm already running through the obvious things. Plugged in, turned on, connected to the computer, drivers installed. When I get there, I discover it's a Mac. I'm much more a PC guy, but with the help of Google, I know enough about Macs to navigate to what I need. The obvious all checks out, even the drivers are installed. I check connected devices, and the printer shows up. I try to print a test page, I get an error about a paper jam. I check it all out and no jam. So I try again, this time nothing. No errors, no status, nothing happens on the printer. I check the queue and nothing. So I download the drivers and prepare to reinstall. The system wants a password. She doesn't know it. It was her husband's computer, and he had passed away. She had a page of notes he had made, and I tried all the passwords there and nothing. I Google how to reset the password and reboot into recovery mode. It wants the old password to reset. We try again and are getting nowhere. It turns out there are 3 users listed: him, her, and admin. The problem is that the Apple account ID is linked to his email address. He was a retired professor at the local university, and the university had gotten rid of all the retirees' accounts about a year ago. So we couldn't access the email. So I've hit the limit of my knowledge and don't want to waste her time spinning wheels going nowhere. So I decided it was time to talk to the experts. I called Apple support and was surprised. I didn't have to navigate through phone menu. Hell, I didn't have to speak to someone who was just going off a script but had no idea. I got a real person within 2 minutes, and she was very knowledgeable. Turns out, the macOS version dates back to 2017. She said that's going to make it more time-consuming. So we go through a whole bunch of don't have access to this account, and we're currently waiting for them to send her a new password, at which time I can finally get back to that troublesome printer. After some much-needed updates, of course. The things I do for $30 per hour. Luckily, I love it, and I meet some really interesting people along the way. Story 27. The Cursed Office. Disclaimer: I am not IT currently, but I have good relations with IT at current company, and sometimes I help them solve issues in my department. At some point during pandemic, our IT realized that remote desktoping into work computers was too convenient for users and gave us all terrible, I am told there's 2% a week failure rate, laptops to work from home. Those came with Bluetooth keyboards and mice. We work in quasi-open offices, which is to say, large rooms housing approximately 10 people each, but not a fully open environment. At one point, a conference happened where everyone involved had to bring their laptops with them. They left their peripherals at their desks and just used the built-in trackpads and keyboards. Once they returned, they started noticing strange issues. Their mouse would move on their own and their keyboard would type on their own. It would only happen in one specific office and not in others. So they called IT. It couldn't identify the issue and asked if I know something about it. I didn't, but I went to check it out anyway. However, as I wasn't focused on the affected machines, I noticed that the inputs are identical to what other colleagues are typing. Long story short, what happened is that the leftover peripherals managed to pair themselves in such a way that every item was controlling at least 2 computers at once. IT spent an hour manually unpairing everything and repairing correct devices to lift the curse of that office. And now, I always turn off Bluetooth devices when I step away from the desk. Story 28. Do you know Dell's address? This was years ago in the print shop at a university. To set the stage, I was working for a man who printed out an email with a hyperlink and asked me to check out the site behind the link. I had to explain that I needed the email forwarded to get the address behind the link. He didn't know you could forward email. He had ordered a new PC and was trying to get it going. One of the assistants came back to my office and asked me if I knew Dell's address. Me. Not off the top of my head. Why? Her. I don't know. He's trying to fill out a form from IT. I went to see what he was doing, as I'm pretty sure IT wasn't asking for Dell's address. I go to his office. It was the form to get a new PC on the network. It needed the hardware address. I almost never laugh at a question, no matter how dumb. That one got me. Story 29. Don't want to listen to IT. A great way to get fired. I'm sure this has been brought up before, but I'll share a fun story from about 10 years ago. Edit. I guess time flies. It's been about 16 years ago. LOL. Working in a medium-sized accounting firm in the big city. Had an auditor who thought she knew everything about IT simply because her husband worked for RIM, BlackBerry. She was originally from Houston, and I don't care much for folks from down there. If you are a Houstonian, don't take too much offense. I'm sure you hate North Texas folks too. Anyways, she walks in with a laptop and says it will not boot up. Sure enough, got message that cannot find OS. Give her a loaner lappy. Now, we encrypt our laptops at that time with McAfee endpoint encryption. Pulled out the decrypting software and began to decrypt for the rest of the day to get safe boot off. Get it off right before 5 p.m., and sure enough, getting smart errors. Called her into the IT office next day and told her that her hard drive was failing. Also discovered she was not saving files to the network drive. Her excuse? Ugh, VPN is too slow, so I save them to the hard drive. Yeah, I know it can be slow, but firm policy is you save everything to the network. I give her back Lappy and tell her to move those files to the server, with the understanding that she will be using the loaner laptop for a while, and she needs to bring it back once the files are synced. After about 5 minutes, I got a hunch something wasn't right. Go to her cube, she's friggin' gone. Left firm with an unencrypted laptop. She works with people's SSNs, for heaven's sake. Drive is in imminent threat of mechanical failure. Next day she arrives, says machine will not load Windows. Yep, smart failure has reached its zenith. Drive is toast. Explain that to her. Next day, one of the partners asks me what happened. I explain all this crap. Found out she didn't sync a friggin' thing to the server, and now the firm must write down an additional 60 hours of time that is not billable, because all the work has to be recreated. By the next day, she was gone. A senior auditor with tenure in the firm. Lesson here. Not listening to IT can get you fired. Story 30. I'm honestly somewhat concerned for this user's memory. Got a pretty good one today that I am not convinced is over, but I expect it to just be more of the same. I'll start by saying, our company does not have a VPN. I'm not in love with that fact, as it does in part create today's issue, but that's not my choice, and other users don't struggle like this, so whatever. Of course, this means that if you forget your password, we can't help you get into the company laptop. The local account is a domain account, but at home you can't connect to the domain because no VPN. The few users we have who exclusively work from home just deal with it and do a really good job of not getting stuck out of their local account. Production apps are on RDP session anyway, so some even use personal devices. But this user does not work from home regularly, they've just been having some sort of temporary difficulty getting to the office. And of course they forget their password, this was yesterday. They have a personal device they can use. Somehow I get them logged into RDP there. They seem to reset their password just fine, have them log out and back in to confirm, don't hear from them for a while. Later on, my coworker speaks to them. They're going to be coming into the office today to connect to the Wi-Fi and fix their local account. They were able to get a ride or something. I help them again when they arrive. Somehow their Wi-Fi drivers are just gone. Can't see even the option no matter how many times it's rebooted. Strange, as when in the office, we use Wi-Fi a lot, so they should have noticed this issue themselves sooner. But whatever, plug in Ethernet and install new Wi-Fi drivers, that's all sorted. User, now which password do I use generic from yesterday? Me. No, it should be the password you set yesterday. After that, you were able to reset when you were on the phone with me yesterday, right? User shrugs. Me. So when I, as the last thing, had you log out of and back into the RDP session, did you use the same password I gave you? Or did you use the one you entered when looking at the password reset screen? User shrugs harder and stammers. Me. Okay, never mind. Let's just have you reset it now. Reset to generic again. Tell them what it is. They log into the PC, they reset their password again, and finally I have them switch to the guest network, so RDP prompts them to enter PW, doesn't do this if on domain. That all works fine, so I have them reboot and relog into everything once more just to make sure, and send them on their way. Not even 3 hours later, my coworker hears from them again. They have somehow again forgotten the password they just made. And they want to know if anyone will be in the office past 5 to help them again on a Friday. I have to feel like it's some kind of work avoidance thing, but also, This user is notorious for being astoundingly problematic, so I have no idea. Story 31. While frustrating to my job, I genuinely admire one of my coworkers' attitudes. Long story short, I'm a paralegal at a small law firm who was recently promoted to an IT liaison of sorts. Basically, I set up electronics and employees come to me to see if I can help with their problem. If I can't help, I tell them to call our IT company. The job came with a decent raise and a good reduction in billable hours, so I'm a fan. We have one older attorney, I'll call him Steve, who is amazing at his job and a genuinely good dude, but is just not someone who gets tech by any stretch. Steve comes to my office with his personal laptop, saying that he's had an issue with it for the past 4 months. His email hadn't updated on this laptop since December, which coincidentally was the last time I had reset his password. Since this was a simple password issue, I reset his password to something he could remember that was similar to his other passwords. Here's where the issue comes in. We require 2-factor authentication. Steve, can I see your phone? I need it to log into your email. Phone? Yeah, remember those 6-digit codes they text you? I need those so I can log you in. Oh, I didn't think I'd need my phone today, I left it at home. I called the IT company and got some stuff bypassed long enough that we could sign him back into his work computer and his personal laptop, but honestly, it hasn't left my mind since. I'm just so envious of someone, especially an attorney, who, in 2025, just doesn't seem to care all that much about having their phone on them. Story 32. Well, it's a mystery. I was sole tech support for a small but profitable company. Only about 75 users. Mostly good people, trying hard, but a few special ones. We had a logistics manager that may have been good at logistics, but computer skills were definitely lacking. Unrelated case in point, he had over 50 gigabytes of email in his inbox. No archives, no folders, just one big pile, and he didn't see any problems with that. Anyway, one morning about 9 a.m. or so, he calls and says his laptop screen just went black. I asked him to make sure he had a power adapter plugged in. Duh, of course. I could not remote into the unit. He was at the My site, just different building, so I said I'd be right over. So I dropped what I was doing and trekked to his office. And there he was, paper towels in hand, wiping coffee off his desk. I picked up his laptop, tilted it and drained probably a quarter cup of coffee out, onto his recently dried desk, of course. Looking him dead in the eye, I asked, "You didn't think spilling a full cup of coffee into your laptop had anything to do with the screen just went black?" Story 33. No charge. Nonsense. For context, I am not formal tech support. I have a full-time job, and I do a little support and teaching to older adults and seniors who either need support for a problem, help understanding a new device that was given to them, often a tablet or smart TV, help using their device for a new task, or sometimes all of the above. I operate by word of mouth mostly. It's not so much a job as a fun hobby that gets me a little spending money every now and then. On with the story. I got a frantic call late one afternoon from my favorite customer. She lived in a semi-independent care facility down the road. This is where most of my customers come from. I'm going to call her Kathy. She was having problems emailing in her meal choices for the week, including that night, and was up against a deadline. She said every time she sends the email, it comes back undeliverable. I told her I'd be right there. I grabbed my keys and left. When I got there, Kathy told me again what was going on. I looked at her email, and as I suspected, it was a typo that kept popping up as the autofill for Gmail. I asked her about the actual address, and she showed me on the menu. I typed the full address and sent the email. It didn't bounce back, but just to be sure, I started another message just to make sure it would come up in the autofill. She asked me how much, and I told her no charge. It hadn't even taken me 5 minutes. She kept arguing with me, and I told her, "Kathy, it took so little time that it's not worth the $30 an hour I charge." For reference, I used to charge only $10 to $15 until I met her. She convinced me to increase the price, saying I was worth more than I was charging. We so have had this argument many times when it comes to payment because she would always pay me more than I charge. After a while, I just stopped arguing. Finally, after about a minute of back and forth, asked how long it took me to get there. I told her about 5 minutes. She said that's 10 minutes round trip. Then she starts to get the money out of a drawer, and grinning, she hands me a 10 and a 20 and says, "10s are afraid to go out at night, so they take a 20 along for protection." I laughed at her and just said, "Okay, thank you." She passed away a few months ago, and her memorial service is this weekend. She still remains my best and favorite customer. I got to know her and her oldest daughter well. It got to the point where I just called her mom. Story 34 to 5 hours later. Should we try the device everyone is actually using? Spent 5 hours today helping two of my tech deal with a communication issue. We have software that we install locally, which accesses a device on their network. All ports are open, firewalls temporarily disabled, can ping and CMD cannot connect the application to the device. We are not IT. We are software support talking to the customer's IT, whose favorite phrase is, "What should I do?" 5 hours later, after troubleshooting a device whose IP is showing 10.10.10 when the default gateway on the host computer is 192.168.1, he says, "Should we try all of this on the time clock all the users are actually using?" 5 minutes later, the issue is resolved. Apparently at some point, device A stopped working, they had device B on hand to take its place, and for some reason left device A accessible. This would have been a 3-minute call if we knew that. We had no way of even knowing to ask that question. But we know now. Always an exciting day in tech support. Story 35. You are in the middle of a SAR operation? Don't care. A little bit of context beforehand. For the past 8 years, I've been working as an IT tech in AMRCC, which is a Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. Basically, we coordinate all search and rescue operations in our maritime area of responsibility, so we deal with literal human life, and people can die if we screw up badly enough. A few years ago, I had the displeasure of having a young man to train so that IT wouldn't be a one-person job anymore. We'll call him Void, because that's what he had in between his 2 ears. Void did not learn anything in the 1.5 years he graced us with his presence. I could teach him something one day, ask him if he had understood, even make him do some exercises he would have forgotten the next day, if not sooner. But Void was convinced he was the best thing to happen to tech support since the invention of shortcuts. Anyway, that day, Void was tasked to swap out screens in the operational workstations. Now, these workstations are of course manned 24/7 because an emergency can arise at any moment, so we cannot swap screen after everybody has come home, because it doesn't happen. What happens in this case is we either just let the person working at this workstation take a break while we are working on it, put the person on another workstation a few meters away. Not very practical in case of an emergency because these are teams of 2 people whose work statins are next to each other so they can communicate verbally, easily but manageable for a few hours if needed. Or put up a workstation from our stock if we need to work on the hardware, like swap out HDD and such. What we not do, however, is touch the workstation or anything attached to it, like, for example, screens, if a SAR operation is underway, unless explicitly asked. I'm pretty sure at this point you all have understood what happened. An operation was underway, but Void has this God-given task to do, swap out the old screens and replace them with new ones, so he began to unconnect the first screen. Of course, the operator working at the workstation stopped him to ask him what in the ever-loving hell he was doing. "Well, I am swapping out the screens." "You absolute buffoon, didn't you see we are in the middle of an operation and we need all of our screens?" Of course, this was met with silence and an air of incomprehension from Void. What do you mean the operational workstations are no touchy during an actual operation? He was never asked to do anything relating to operational workstations alone ever again. If you enjoy tech fails and support wins, subscribe for more stories like these.